I used to throw plants away, not because I wanted to, because I thought they were gone. Brown, crispy, drooping over the side of the pot like they'd given up on life, and honestly, so had I. Straight into the compost bin, no second chances. And here's the thing, nobody tells beginner gardeners. Most of the plants you think are dead aren't. They're not dead, they're starving. There's a difference between a plant that's truly, cellularly gone, no green anywhere, mushy black roots, stem snaps dry as a twig, and a plant that's just been neglected, malnourished, sitting there running on fumes, waiting for one thing to switch it back on. And that one thing is almost never what people rush out and buy at the garden center. It's not a fancy fertilizer spike. It's not a $50 bottle of Miracle Grow. It's stuff sitting in your kitchen trash can right now. Today I'm showing you 5 natural fertilizers that bring hopeless plants back so fast it genuinely looks like magic. I've used every single one of these to pull plants back from the edge plants I was seconds from tossing. And number 5 is the one that saved a fern I'd already written a eulogy for in my head. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your kitchen scraps completely differently. Let's get into it. Number 1. Banana peel water, the potassium rescue. Start with the easiest one. Next time you eat a banana, don't throw the peel away. Drop it in a jar of water, let it sit for 2 or 3 days, and you've made one of the most effective natural fertilizers a beginner can use. Picture it steeping on your windowsill, the peel slowly turning the water, a soft, golden brown, little sunlight streaks catching the jar in the afternoon. It looks like nothing. It's actually a potassium bomb. Here's why gardeners love it. Potassium is what a plant uses to move water and nutrients through its own tissue. When a plant looks limp, floppy, droopy, like it doesn't have the strength to hold itself up, that's very often a potassium problem, not a watering problem. You can water a potassium-starved plant every single day and it'll still sag. It's not thirsty, it's weak. The biggest practical benefit here is speed. Because it's already dissolved in water, the plant's roots can access it almost immediately, no breaking down solid matter first. Beginners succeed with this one because you genuinely cannot mess it up. There's no measuring, no ratios, no burning your plant with too much nitrogen. One tip: strain the water before you pour it, so you're not leaving peel chunks in the soil to attract gnats. And this works in basically any USDA zone, indoors or out, because it's just a soil drench, no climate requirements at all. Remember this one sentence: if your plant looks tired, not thirsty, banana peel water is your first move. By now, you're probably seeing a pattern. None of this is expensive, none of it is complicated, but we're only getting started, because the next one solves a completely different problem. Number 2. Eggshell water, the calcium fix. Here's what most people don't realize. A lot of, my plant is dying and I don't know why, situations aren't a watering problem or a light problem. They're a structural problem. The plant's cell walls are literally too weak to hold themselves up. That's calcium's job. Save your eggshells, crush them, drop them in a jar, fill it with water, and let them sit for about a week. Some gardeners let theirs sit longer, even a couple weeks, for a stronger brew. You'll notice the water stays mostly clear, maybe a little cloudy, and that's exactly what you want. That cloudiness is calcium slowly leaching out into a form your plant can actually absorb. Picture new growth on a calcium-starved plant. It comes in curled, stunted, sometimes with brown or black spotting at the tips. That's the plant physically failing to build strong new cells. Calcium water fixes that from the inside out. The biggest practical benefit is that this isn't a quick fix that fades calcium, builds structural strength that lasts. Beginners succeed with it because, like the banana peel trick, it's forgiving. You're not going to overdose a plant on eggshell water. One tip: use it on tomatoes, peppers, and squash especially, since calcium deficiency is exactly what causes blossom end rot, that ugly black patch on the bottom of the fruit. If you garden outdoors, this matters most in zones with fast-draining sandy soil, where calcium washes out quicker than in heavier clay soils. If new growth looks weak or deformed, don't reach for more water. Reach for calcium. Number 3. Coffee grounds, the slow-release nitrogen feed. This next one surprised me the most when I first learned it, because I'd always heard coffee grounds were bad for plants. Turns out, it's all about how you use them. Use coffee grounds not fresh. Used are rich in nitrogen. Nitrogen is what drives leafy, green growth. It's the difference between a plant with pale, yellowing, see-through leaves and one with deep, saturated green foliage that actually looks alive. Here's the picture. Sprinkle a thin layer of dried coffee grounds across the top of your soil, work it in gently, and over the next few weeks as you water, it breaks down slowly and steadily feeds nitrogen into the root zone. It's not an instant hit like the banana or eggshell water. It's a slow, steady release. Think of it as a nutrient drip feed rather than a shot of espresso. Gardeners love this one because it solves two problems at once. It feeds nitrogen-hungry plants, and the texture actually improves drainage and airflow in dense, compacted soil. Beginners succeed with it because the margin for error is wide. A light sprinkle every few weeks is plenty. One important tip, and this is the mistake almost everyone makes. Never pile on fresh, wet coffee grounds in a thick layer. That mats down, blocks water and air completely, and can actually mold. Dry them out first, then apply thin. This one works especially well for leafy greens, ferns, and acid-loving plants like azaleas, hydrangeas, and blueberries. So if you're gardening in a zone with alkaline soil, this is one of your best natural tools for nudging pH in the right direction. Pale and see-through leaves are begging for nitrogen coffee grounds. Answer that call slowly and safely. We're 4 items deep, and this is where things get genuinely fascinating, because the next one isn't about feeding a struggling plant. It's about triggering a full-blown recovery response. Number 4. Epsom salt solution, the magnesium trigger. Magnesium doesn't get talked about enough, and that's a shame, because it's the literal core of chlorophyll. Without magnesium, a plant physically cannot produce the green pigment it needs to photosynthesize to make its own food from sunlight. Picture a plant with magnesium deficiency. The veins of the leaf stay dark green, almost bright, while everything in between fades to a sickly yellow. It looks striped, almost marbled. That's not a disease. That's a plant that's run out of the raw material to make more green. Dissolve a tablespoon of Epsom salt into a gallon of water, and water your plant with it once a month. What's surprising is how visible the change is, often within 1 to 2 weeks. That yellowing between the veins starts pulling back toward green again, because the plant finally has what it needs to rebuild its chlorophyll supply. This is the one gardeners reach for on plants that look almost hopeless, dull, faded, yellow-streaked, because the transformation is one of the most visually dramatic on this list. Beginners succeed with it because, again, it's just dissolved in water, no guesswork. One tip. This is especially effective for roses, tomatoes, and peppers, which are notoriously heavy magnesium users. And a small warning, Epsom salt is helpful, but it's not a cure-all. If you're using it monthly and not seeing improvement, the issue is likely something else. So don't over-apply hoping for a miracle. Yellow between green veins isn't random, it's a magnesium alarm bell, and Epsom salt answers it. Number 5. Compost tea, the full recovery formula. And here we are. Number 5. The one I saved for last, because this is the fertilizer that actually saved that fern I told you about at the beginning. It had lost almost all its fronds. What was left was brown, brittle, and curling inward. I genuinely thought it was finished. But the crown, the base where new growth emerges, still had a faint trace of green if you look closely. That's the line between truly dead and just barely hanging on. And when there's still green at the base, there's still a chance. Compost tea is different from everything else on this list because it's not feeding one nutrient, it's feeding the whole system. You steep finished compost in water for a day or two, stirring occasionally, and what you end up with is a living broth of nitrogen, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and beneficial microbes, all at once. Imagine pouring that dark, earthy liquid slowly around the base of a struggling plant. It doesn't just feed the leaves, it feeds the soil biology. The microorganisms that break nutrients down into a form roots can actually absorb. That's the part most people miss. A plant isn't just fed by fertilizer, it's fed by a living soil ecosystem, and compost tea rebuilds that ecosystem directly. This is why it works on plants. Nothing else seems to touch, because it's not correcting one deficiency. It's restoring the whole system that was failing. The biggest practical benefit, this is as close to an all-in-one recovery formula as natural gardening gets. Beginners succeed with it because you don't need to diagnose exactly what's wrong. Compost tea covers multiple bases at once, so even if you're not sure whether it's nitrogen, potassium, or calcium, you're covering all three. One tip, apply it every 2 to 3 weeks during the growing season, and always to already moist soil, never bone-dry soil, so the roots can actually take it up instead of getting a shock. It works in every USDA zone, indoors and out, since it's just feeding what's already in your pot. That fern I mentioned, 3 weeks of compost tea, once a week. New growth at the crown by week 2. By week 5, it had more fronds than it started with before it ever declined. When nothing else seems to be working, compost tea doesn't guess at the problem. It fixes the whole system at once. Here's what I want you to really sit with. A plant that looks dead is very often a plant that's just been asking for something specific, and nobody was listening. Potassium for the ones that sag. Calcium for the ones that grow weak and deformed. Nitrogen for the pale ones. Magnesium for the streaky yellow ones. And when you genuinely don't know which one it is, compost tea. Because it feeds all of it at once. Imagine walking into your garden next spring, and instead of pulling brown, crispy plants and tossing them in the trash, you're mixing up a jar of banana peel water at your kitchen counter instead. Imagine the plant you almost gave up on last year, coming back thicker and greener than it ever was before you nearly lost it. That's not a fantasy. That's just what happens when you feed a plant what it's actually asking for. Now, I do want to be honest with you about one thing before you go. If a plant is truly gone, no green anywhere, roots turn to mush, stem completely dry and hollow, no fertilizer on this list is going to bring it back. And that's just biology, not magic. But so many of the plants we give up on aren't actually there yet. They're just starving. And that's a problem every single one of these 5 things can fix. So tell me, which one are you trying first? Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever pulled a plant back from the edge like this? Or thrown one away that you later wished you'd saved? I read every comment, and I genuinely love to hear your story. If this helped you, look at your kitchen scraps a little differently. Hit subscribe, because next week we're digging into another one of these forgotten tricks that most gardeners never learn. See you in the next one.